Hey, Cuttle.
Hello, Tech.
So, just to, I sort of wanted to start out by sort of disarming any sort of like uh, obligation or anything you feel. We were talking a little bit beforehand about like you feeling like you're not sure if you have anything to talk about, and one of the ideas behind this is that it's sort of like a late night 3 a.m. talk. I mean, it's only 7:30 when we're recording this, but it's sort of like a late night 3 a.m. talk where we just chat and like if deep stuff comes up, it comes up, and if not, that's okay. I have a couple of like a couple of like topics that I thought I might ask you about if you want to get into them, but if it's just like an opportunity for us to catch up, that's totally fine because really the main purpose of this is to like it's a way that I want to like provide value to the people in my community, and that includes you. So the main
Mm,
focus of this is like you. Um, so how are you?
I'm doing all right.
What is all right?
Um, I've had this week off,
Sounds
so I've been
nice.
able to do more stuff that I want to do. Um,
For sure.
so in less stress, lots
Yeah.
more
And
stress.
you have the week off from work. What about from being a full-time pet mom?
No,
Not no week off from that. Never a week off
no,
from that.
yeah, no.
How
I
is so? But despite that, you've still been able to do more of like what you want to do.
yeah.
What does that look like? What kind of stuff have you been doing?
Um, well, I finished up the shirt cut meme
For sure.
for you. Um,
I loved that so much. By the way, thank you so much.
no problem. Um, I meant to do actual drawing in my sketchbook, but I never did it.
Mm,
Um, and then like Tuesday I was super productive. I did my laundry and I actually cleaned my room, which is like a big
a big deal.
thing in general.
Totally.
And what else did I do? I did something else and I can't remember.
Okay. Well, that sounds awesome. So like it's been a nice sort of like relaxation time.
Yeah.
So given that, uh, why is it that you just feel all right?
Um, because I still, my brain's always like full of self-doubt and all that good stuff.
What kind of stuff is it telling you?
Um, that like I'm not interesting or I'm not like attractive or like nobody actually really likes me
Hmm.
kind
And
of thing.
and I'm gonna sort of take those like one at a time. So like, who do you want to interest?
Um, I don't think I really have anybody specific in mind.
It's just like in general, like you want to feel loved.
Yes.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So you said, I don't feel. I'm afraid that like I'm not interesting, or that I'm not pretty, or uh, that nobody really likes me. And so, do you have any? Do you have any impression of like how long you've like when did you start feeling like nobody liked you?
It's always been kind of a fear thing, but hold on, I can actually track it back.
Okay.
Uh, when was the 8th? About a week ago. Um, I didn't feel like I really related to anybody.
Hmm. And when you don't relate to anybody, you feel like nobody really likes you.
Yeah, because I feel like if I talk about something, nobody's gonna be interested, so why talk at all?
I see. And how does it feel when you don't talk at all?
Um, it just kind of builds up inside of me.
Yeah, like it makes it worse, right?
Yeah, and usually stuff I talk about, sometimes sometimes my family will be okay with it, and sometimes they're just like not interested at all.
Yeah. And other than family, do you have other people that you feel okay talking to?
Will you?
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Um, my one friend, that I've had since like high school,
Hmm.
but they're in and off of social media, so sometimes it's hard to get in contact with them.
I see. Okay. And when just sort of like one I don't know, like observation that I want to make is that, and I think I've talked to you about this before, but that the like with like depression and anxiety and that sort of thing, it has this sort of brilliant vicious circle that it implements, which is that when we are anxious or depressed, we tend to like the depression tends to sort of like encourage us to isolate, and then that isolation makes things worse. And so just sort of a really like basic common thing that I talk to people about is like when you feel anxious or depressed, like the best thing that you can do, not always, but in a lot of cases, and I think in your case definitely, the best thing that you can do is actually surround yourself with people rather than isolate. Does that feel like when you're in those states where like you don't feel interesting or loved, does that feel possible to you?
Usually no,
Hmm.
because also I find myself that like if I am in like in a depressive or a really anxious state,
Mm-hmm.
when I talk to people, I feel like I might say something that's gonna like deter them away,
Mm-hmm.
like, or they'll find it like annoying, especially since I go up and down a lot. I don't know. I might possibly have like bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
but it goes up and down a lot. So like I'll get into like a really depressive state and then I'll be like really good for a while. And then I'll get down back to the depressive and I don't want people to be like, "Oh, she's doing this shit again."
Yeah, it sounds like you're really afraid of losing people.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Um because I have lost friends in the past
Is it?
and some of them I miss.
I see.
Some of them I'm kind of glad I'm not friends with anymore.
Yeah, I get that. Um, and do you think that the reason do you think that it was your fault that you lost those friends?
Um Sometimes. Usually it's just like a situational thing,
Yeah, so
like
like it, a
go to
mismatch. It did.
different school kind of thing.
Oh, sure, just sort of like drifted apart.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so, what is it that makes you think that you that your anxiety or depression or whatever is going to make you lose people?
Um, 'Cause I hate to admit it, but sometimes when when I hear somebody getting like that,
Mm-hmm.
it does like that's the thought process that I get
Mm-hmm.
is, "Oh, it's this again." I'm like I feel for them, but at the same time I'm like I don't feel like giving too much sympathy because I've done it before, but at the same time, I'm very sympathetic because I understand.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That and I get why you say I feel bad saying it, but I totally understand what you mean. That like if someone is constantly coming to you with nothing but like doom and gloom, and like you don't feel like they're actually like doing anything about it, like eventually you're like, okay, dude, like I don't really want to be around this because this is like all there is.
Yeah, like there's like some people that like sometimes they'll only pop up when they're in a depressive state and they're never around when they're in a good mood. So
Yeah. It's
it's
almost
like, oh
like
no, this person's here.
yeah, like those sorts of relationships, like the way that I see them is that they're very one-sided. Like the person sort of doesn't give anything of value and wants everything. They sort of suck. They're like a leech, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you do you feel like you give things of value, Cuddle?
Um, I'm not sure how to is there a way to rephrase that question?
In relationships, do you feel like you provide value?
Um, sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of there.
So, I'm not saying that in every instance of, like moment to moment do you provide value every moment. I'm saying like in your relationships in general, do you think that you are someone that only takes, or do you feel like you give in relationships?
Um, I feel like I usually give.
Do you
Um,
do you feel like you give more than you take?
um, yeah, usually.
So I don't know how much this helps you. Please let me know. But just from like the discussion that we've been having so far, the part of the fear for you is like about losing people, and the reason that that fear sort of exists is because like you're like, if I share that I'm like depressed and sad when I'm depressed and sad, then they'll leave, because I personally have the experience that when somebody is, just depressed and sad all the time, it's not pleasant to be around. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you're actually the opposite of one of those people. Most of the time, you are trying to give and like provide value, and then sometimes you feel depressed and sad. And I just I feel like I just from sort of a logical standpoint, it makes sense that if we agree that the reason that most of the time we want to sort of disengage from people who are like depressed and sad all the time is because like they are takers and don't really like give anything in the relationship, that's not you. What do you think about that?
I guess that sounds about right. Um, I feel like sometimes I am like a taker. Like sometimes I will be like kind of like fishing for compliments and what have you, and
Yeah.
just like security.
Yeah, and I think that we all do that, like in order to be in a relationship, there has to be give and take. It can't just be give or just be take. But my
Yeah.
my point is that I think that the reason that like the kind of relationship that you're afraid of happens is because the person just takes, and it seems like it is your natural inclination to give and not to take. And so I don't know if this like hits any sort of like you might logically understand this but not feel it, so it might not have any impact. So let me know. But it because that is your natural inclination, it seems like if you start leaning toward the other direction, you're not gonna you're not gonna run into the situation where you become one of those people who is just taking, because again, you naturally lean toward the other way of giving.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Um, I guess that sounds about right. I just got distracted. My sister's just making noises. Um, honey.
Oh, I forgot about your. We're not going to be able to have a long talk. Your fetch betch duties are going to overwhelm us.
She's actually been honey. She's actually been taking a break from fetch. I've been making her take a break.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear it.
She's getting a little more sore and arthritic. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm talking shit about you. Get used
oh.
to it. Your brother can come onto the bed. Let him snuggle. But yeah, she's been taking a break from fetch.
So, is there something within this topic that we're talking about now that that you would like to ask a question about or sort of like delve more into?
Um,
I have other directions that I think we could go, but I just wanted to see if there was anything else that
I think my one friend, the one friend that I have from high school,
mhm,
they are very similar. Like
similar to you.
yeah.
Okay.
Um and cuz we're both not super great at interacting
Hmm.
socially, and so like during the summertime, like especially like early like 2010s, it was kind of hard because I lost one of my dogs, and it was really like traumatic for me, so I just like hated summer.
Yeah.
And so my friend, they always got me gifts, and they're like, I don't know how to like help people cope with their feelings. I'm like, here, your gift.
Right. Yeah, you're
And
actually a really amazing gift giver. You're really, really good at that.
yeah, so I'm like, I find myself doing that because I'm like, I don't know how to talk feelings. Your
Hmm.
gift.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's actually a really sort of beautiful way to express it. You're like, I don't know how to help somebody who's like going through the worst loss of their life right now, but like I can I can show that I'm here through like a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you and your friend are very similar in that you don't know how to sort of like spark up conversations, and what I'm hearing from what you just told me is that like one of the ways that you have learned how to do that is through sort of like giving something, whether it's like sending somebody a piece of art that you really like, or like a meme, or a gift. Uh, that's one of the ways that you've sort of learned to connect. Is that sort of what you were saying?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Honey, can you not?
And I think that that's a great way to connect. And I think that the more like tools that, because I think that one thing that might happen, and again, like this is just a theory, so feel free to like push back against it, but one of the things that might happen is that when you are feeling depressed or anxious, you don't I think that like gifts and art and things like that are things that often require sort of like inspiration and like to be feeling good in order to give. And so when you're feeling depressed and anxious, like you don't have that inspiration. So like you can't think of a piece of art to send somebody or a meme to send somebody to connect. Does that sound right?
Yeah. If I when I get into like the my depressive and anxious states, it's even if I do have time to like do art or where have you,
Mm-hmm.
I just find myself uninspired to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, totally. Because it saps that creativity out of you.
Yeah, and that's what I think has been like affecting me with work, because it just takes all my energy. So when I come home, I'm like, eh, I don't want to do that. But yeah.
I'm writing a note so I don't forget. Um, uh, so one of the things I would that I'd like to offer, if you'd like it, is maybe some like a few tools that you might be able to use when you are feeling depressed or anxious that you don't have to feel inspired for in order to reach out. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. So one option, I'm gonna write these down so I can like send this to you after, and you can have it if you want. Um, so one tool for like tools for reaching out is just simply like stating the facts, just being like, hey, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, whatever, and I wanted to be with people because tech tells me that it's bad to be by myself. Um, And like just that is a great sort of icebreaker, and most people that I know will actually respond pretty positively to that. That being said, I do understand that that specific tool may, for you specifically, trigger anxiety about like, oh, but I'm being that person. Is that does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm still gonna write it down just in case. So then another tool is that I found really useful for connecting with people. It's funny that the conversation is going this way because I'm actually currently listening to an audiobook that is all about sort of like cultivating connections and getting better at that. And one of the other tools that you can use is to express like there are lots of different ways to like add value, and since you're worried about sort of like being a taker when you're feeling depressed or anxious, one of the very simple ways that you can add value even when you're depressed or anxious, possibly even more so, is just like tell somebody like how you're feeling about them. So like for example, um, if I were feeling like really depressed and anxious, I might have a thought about you and be like, man, Cuttle has like always been there for me, like through all the like burnout and like thick and thin of like all the like streaming stuff that I went through. Like Cuttle has always stuck by me and never left. And so like if I was feeling like anxious or depressed, I might reach out and just sort of like express that sentiment to you. Just be like, hey, like I'm feeling kind of rotten right now, but I just wanted to say that I'm really glad that you're in my life because you've always been there, and I really appreciate that. And so like
Yeah.
in that sense, like you're providing value, and you are also uh, you are also reaching out and sort of surrounding yourself with people. How does that one feel?
The honey was gonna bark. Um, that one seems good.
Yeah. Or
Although I feel like I would be very hesitant at first
how come?
because I don't know. I get bad. I get really. I'm not great at being like sentimental, I suppose.
Mushy.
Yeah.
Okay.
At
Um,
least not allowed.
and uh, when you is the does the mushy part tie into the fear of losing somebody, or is it something different?
It might tie in a little bit. It might be like one of those things like they're like this person's like too like emotional or something. I don't know. It's like trying to think of like the right way to say it. Like oh maybe like oh this person's like way too attached to me or something like that.
Like just as a sort of blatant example, like when you compliment a well, in my case, if I were to like compliment a girl on her like skirt or something, she might be afraid that I was like hitting on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that that's very common in society. I think that most people feel sort of uncomfortable about that, and I actively try to fight against that because I think that what ends up happening is that people like you who are very special and do have like a lot to give feel worthless because they never hear from anyone that they're special. And so I think that the more that we can reach out and be like, hey, and like this is, I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit, but the more that we can reach out and be like, hey, like you're really special because of this reason to me. Um, I think that it'll make it'll cause a lot of healing in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like spreading positivity and hoping that it will sprinkle onto you.
I actually have like a visceral negative reaction to the word positivity. I actually
Positivity.
I actually hate that word because like of just the sort of like toxic positivity groups that have developed where they're like sunshine and smiles all the time. Like I know that spreading positivity can be a good thing, but I just every time I hear it, I'm just like, no, I don't. I hate it.
No, yeah, yeah. I get that.
um,
Just oh, these people that are trying to be cheerful all the time.
disgusting. Makes me
Okay.
sick. Um, so one question I have is like, does the fear of complimenting someone feel different or the same as the fear of coming to someone when you're depressed or anxious and thinking that you're going to lose them?
Um, I'm unsure. I don't know why. I feel like my brain's just having a hard time wrapping my head around the question.
Okay. Do you get like I think that from our conversations in the past, like you definitely like suppress emotions a lot. Um so I guess what I'm asking is when you let's like step back, take one step back. When you feel uh a a single emotion, can you feel like different flavors of that emotion? So um there's a different kind of happy when you mm, when you like give somebody a hug versus like when you eat a really good meal.
Yeah.
You
Actually, I came across of course I did. A good pin where
yeah,
it has different like emotions and then it has like a couple subcategories.
for sure. Yeah. So I guess my question was, does the fear does the fear that you experience when you are afraid that you're going to lose someone for being, you know, a sort of like toxic depressed person, and the fear of complimenting someone, does it feel the same? Is it the same sort of flavor of fear?
Um, Sometimes it's not like a consistent thing. Like I think like the fear of losing somebody by through compliment is kind of rare.
Okay,
Um,
that's good.
but sometimes it is there.
I'm glad to hear that, because
Yeah.
my theory is that, and again, feel free to push back against this. My theory is that those two would normally feel different. So if they often feel the same, like when when those two different types of fear crop up, if they feel the same, my theory is that there's something there's the actual fear is something deeper down, and these are just sort of like branches on that tree. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think that you're really afraid of, Cuddle?
Um, that is the big question, ain't it?
Yeah.
Um, I guess sometimes I'm afraid to maybe get close to people because I'm afraid I'm gonna lose them.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds
Like,
like the and we might keep digging. I don't know, but from what I'm getting so far, it sounds like the route that the lowest that we've gone so far is that you're really afraid of losing people.
yeah.
Where do you think that comes from?
Um, I guess like maybe when I went to middle school, I didn't have contact with like my best friend, and I only saw him like a couple times after that, and his mom didn't really like me, so I kind of like lost that friend.
Yeah.
And
We,
then most of the time I didn't have my own friends.
okay. And so when before that time, did you not experience the fear of losing people before that?
Um, I don't think so, no.
Okay. So it sounds like losing that friend sort of instilled in you this fear that what's interesting to me is that the fear always seems to be focused on you as the person who is going to cause the losing. But from what I'm hearing in that situation, it doesn't sound like it had anything to do with you.
Yeah. Um, I, it's hard to like, because I'm not sure how many friends I actually technically lost, but it's more friends that I've gone out of touch with.
And do you, I'm gonna come back to this idea that like I know I've asked this question already, but like for most of those that wasn't your fault, right?
Yeah.
So where does the idea that it's your fault come from?
Um, I'm not sure.
Okay, cool.
Maybe for some people, it's like, I don't know, that maybe I accidentally pushed them away at some point.
So I think that what we're actually doing is like we're we've gone deeper down now. Like that we'd gone as deep as we had, and now I think we're sinking a little bit deeper in that. I think that the next sort of like phase of this, the next like uh, dimension of this tree that we're going down is how long have you felt like things are your fault?
Uh, I want to say maybe fourth grade.
What happened in fourth grade?
Uh, Um, I'm trying to remember. I just remember in fourth grade, I was just really like depressed. I just remember because I didn't really have a lot of my own friends, and like a majority of, I think the female class members that I had that hated me, and I was separated from my one friend. We were in different classes, and that bothered me a lot.
Have
And
you always had sort of like single like a single friend at a time?
um, yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't really have like a lot of friends. Like I had friends at school. Like I had like school friends, but I only have like one that I'd hang out with after school, kind of thing.
But you did have sort of a group of school friends that you would hang out with.
Yeah.
Okay. And did that go away in the fourth grade?
Um, I think like in the beginning of fourth grade, I was in a I was separated from my one friend that I had. Or maybe that was fifth grade. It might have been fifth grade. No, I think it was fourth. It was a younger age. Oh, oh. Hold on one second.
Okay.
There are loud beeps going off, and honey does not appreciate it.
For sure. Or what were the loud beeps?
It sounded like like the fire alarms, but
Is your house on fire? Should we evacuate?
I think I would know if my house is on fire.
Okay,
I
good.
don't think it is.
Okay, good.
I don't know what it was when I was in fourth. I just remember that I did feel like super
Alone.
alone because like a majority of my friends were my sister's friends, and I wasn't really sure if they were my friends because I would just end up being there with my sister and them.
But
Like, I don't know.
it sounds like, well, let me just ask. Did the did the one friend that you had in fourth grade that you were frustrated that you weren't, or sad that you weren't with them, did they make you feel like Like they were your special person?
Um, yeah. They, because usually it was just me and him hanging out.
For sure. And and so then I I've noticed a phenomenon where like if because the like having a specialist person is something that I'm actually currently working on as well, where um I think that what I'm learning is that what what are sort of like what we're sort of doing when we have like a specialist person in the way that we do is we are sort of like making that person our center. So like instead of like existing within ourselves, we're sort of saying like I exist for you. I exist with you in my center instead of existing for me. And so then what happens when that center goes away for whatever reason is that no matter what the circumstance like when that center is there, no matter what the surrounding circumstances look like, everything's pretty good because you have your center and that's really like all you need. But then when that center gets removed, everything around you starts looking dark and grim and terrible. Do you relate to that experience at all?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is what I've been learning about for myself is that because I was like when my therapist first brought this idea up to me of like yeah you don't actually like need a specialist person, like it's actually not good for you to have a specialist person, and I was like that concept doesn't even make sense in my brain. Like why would you not have a specialist person? And she was like, I mean, it's fine to like love someone very deeply and have like a wife and like a best friend and or a husband or whatever, like that's totally fine. But the way in which you're doing it, talking to me, the way in which you're and really us, the way in which you're doing it is you're making them your center, and that's the that's the part that's sort of like imprisoning you, because then what happens is if that center isn't okay, you're not okay. Whereas if you're your own center, then it really can't be ripped out from you. Like you might have like bad days and stuff, but that phenomenon of like as long as my center is okay, then everything else is okay. You start to experience that freely without the constraint of like okay, as long as this person is okay, as long as I have this person, then everything is good, and you don't have to sort of like rely on somebody to dictate those circumstances. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so do you feel like you have a center right now?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And in in just sort of like thinking over the past little while, like in most of the times when you sort of like slip, like you said, like um you think that you might be like bipolar, and most of those times where like you really like go for that roller coaster, do you feel like most of those times are related to like something happened with your center?
Um, not all of the time. Um, I'm trying to maybe like 25% of the time.
Okay, that's lower than I thought, so that's good. I thought that it might be the majority, but you don't think so?
I wanted to say 50, but I'm like, oh, that feels like too much.
Does it feel like too much out of like shame, or does it feel like too much because you're like, no, I don't think that it's actually been 50% of the time.
Both.
Okay, all right. I worry that the shame is painting the picture. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just want to see if I can dispel any shame by saying that I am 100% guilty of this. Like, for me, and I'm slowly getting better. I've definitely not like accomplished this task at all. But for me, when like pretty much 99% of the time, if I was actually upset, it was because something had gone wrong with Birdie. Like, nothing else could really touch me.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that helps, but please don't feel ashamed, because I think that it is like you were definitely not alone in that experience.
Yeah. I feel like it's a common thing, but
Totally.
people don't really realize it or something.
Yeah. And what I've been learning recently, and I'm starting to think that maybe uh, you are dealing with something similar, is that the core of this is really all about existence, and like the idea that you, for whatever reason, were not allowed to exist for yourself. You had to exist for other people. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that like we can see it in like the fact that like just as an example, like the fact that you are constantly taking care of your pets. Like you don't get a break from taking care of like your entire family's worth of pets, which is like what, 6 animals more.
Mainly it's the three dogs and then the rodents, the two rodents.
It's a lot. three
Then
dog three dogs sounds
my
so overwhelming to me.
yeah, and especially since Honey is like a toddler that you cannot reason with because she's a dog and she doesn't understand people language.
Yeah. So Cuttle, what would it what would it look like to exist for yourself for a day?
Um, I'd probably sleep in
Okay.
because Floki wakes me up. Um, so I probably wouldn't need a nap because
Okay.
I feel like every day I need a nap.
Because Floki wakes you
So,
up so early.
yeah,
Okay.
like it will be like 5:30 sometimes. Like I can't remember when it was. I think it was like one of the weeks I went to therapy. I'm like, I've been up since 5. She's like, oh my God. And
Okay, so cool. So you wouldn't have to take a nap. You'd get to sleep in. Then what?
um I either try to draw, read, play a game,
Okay.
or just something that I would enjoy doing without getting interrupted.
For sure. Because right now, life doesn't exist without interruptions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always something happening. Like even at night when for the most part the dogs are asleep. Like
Mm-hmm.
right now they're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there will be a moment where they'll get wound up and they'll start barking, or my sister or my mom will bust in for like no particular reason. And I just yeah, it always feels like or somebody will be asking me to do something.
That
It just feels
sounds.
like that's like a constant.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting.
Yeah, like Monday and Tuesday were great because especially Tuesday, because Tuesday Floki went to camp, so I had just Honey and Freya, and they're pretty manageable.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually did a, I was able to get a lot done,
Yeah.
and it was really nice.
Yeah. So how would you feel about like reaching out to your family and being like, "Hey, could we schedule like a day off for me where like I don't have to take care of the pets, and I don't, on a day that you don't have to go to work, like a day where I don't go to work, I don't take care of the pets, and I just like get a day for myself.
Haha. Um,
What's that?
it just sounds because like my therapist also brought this up to me,
Okay.
and I feel like it's probably never gonna happen.
Foregone
Cause
conclusion.
yeah, cause my mom and my sister feel like since I don't work as much as them, I have more free time,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore I have time to watch the pets and what have you. But it gets tiring.
Yeah. Have you ever tried saying to them like, yes, I do have more free time, but also like from what I already know, Cuttle, like it seems like they keep sort of like stacking more responsibility on you without your consent. Like they don't have there's no discussion. They just like will get another pet and be like and assume that you're going to be the one taking care of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was with that was I had so much anxiety when my mom said she was getting Floki
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, oh god, we're gonna have a puppy. We gotta learn a whole new routine and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then Freya, like, I didn't even know she was coming home. I just got a call from my mom saying, "Oh, when we call, bring out both the dogs." And I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Oh, for the puppy." And I'm like, "What puppy?" They just kind of my sister kind of did it on a whim.
Do you feel that your family considers you?
When it's convenient for them.
Do you feel like you have a voice in your household?
Moderately.
Tell me more about that.
Um, it's very low that I have like a say.
So no.
Yeah.
um,
And
go ahead.
yeah, I'm mostly like, oh, if somebody needs a ride, oh, Cuttle can do it. Oh, like Cuttle doesn't have work this day, they can do it. Or and sometimes like my sister will volunteer me for shit.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be like, oh, I can't remember. Like her friend like had there was a moment in time where her dog was going to be home alone, and she was like, oh, you can call Cuddle and see if she can watch him for a little bit. And I'm like, I really wish you would talk to me before and like she volunteered me to drive my cousin to the airport in the wee hours of the morning one Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really sounds like your family does not consider you.
No.
What's it like to have your family like not consider your thoughts or feelings or anything?
I usually just feel ignored or I guess just not as important.
How's that feel?
Terrible.
Yeah. So, given that, what are our options? Like what can we do about it?
I'm unsure
Okay.
because this is like, something that's been going on for ever.
Forever. This has always
For
been the sort of dynamic of the household, right?
yeah.
And how how often have you had conversations about this? Like how often have you brought this up to your family?
I've brought it up to my mom a couple times where um like Freya needed training, and I'm like my sister needs to, you know, stay
Participate
with
in
her
this
more
dog's
often.
care.
Yeah, cuz
Yeah.
like on her days off, she'll just be like, "Yo, I'm going to the mall, bye."
Yeah. So your sister gets to have real days off and do what she wants to do, but you don't.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like from what you're telling me that the times that you've brought it up, it's been situational. Like, hey, in this situation, like this, I wish that this could happen or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
have you ever brought it up as sort of like a general concept of like, hey, I don't feel at all considered in this household. I feel like yes, I know I work less than all of you, but I don't feel like I ever get a break because even when I'm not working, I'm like full time taking care of all of the animals.
I I feel like I maybe brought it up once. Um,
What was that like? What happened?
I can't recall,
Okay.
but
Doesn't
because
d- doesn't
I've
sound
talked
like a
about
whole
this.
lot of good came from it.
No, yeah. Because I've talked about this with my therapist as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where I kind of have this fear of talking about this kind of stuff with my family. More important, like just my mom and my sister specifically.
What's the fear? What are you afraid of?
Um, that they won't take me seriously.
So
That they'll just ignore me and be like, "No, you're the lower rung in this family, so you don't get a say."
yeah. So like let's say that they do say that. Then what?
I'd probably get super frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Super
and
hurt too. That like
yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, they something similar, like I think kind of similar happened in the past where I I got super depressed before like a scan shift at work. So it was like the 6 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. shift,
Mm-hmm. That sounds like
and I
hell.
was having yeah, I hated it. It was so bad. Um, but like I was really depressed. Like I was really low, like suicidal low.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like because I came out of my room and I was crying, and I'm like I don't want to go to I'm like I don't want to go to work, and I worked for my sister, and she's like, well, you can't not go to work, you gotta work, we got stuff to do. And I think my mom was like, yeah, you gotta go to work, you gotta kind of like tough fruit. I'm like, I want to fucking kill myself, and they were just like, yeah, you gotta go to work.
So like zero acknowledgement of how you were feeling, just like do it.
Yeah.
So if you were in a friendship like this where they didn't consider you at all, and when you talked to them about how they didn't consider you at all, they completely ignored you or, denied it or, didn't actually do anything to change it. What would you do in that friendship?
Um, I feel like because think this has happened within my friendship.
Okay.
Like me, my friend, and my cousin always talked about doing like a dumb podcast involving Heathcliff,
Okay.
and I went to a fire at my friend's house, and they were talking about it, and they were saying like, oh, like me and your friend are just gonna do this, and I'm like, oh. I thought it was gonna be all of us, but okay. I kind of felt like hurt, like I felt really hurt in the moment, but I just kind of brushed it off.
You just sort of took
'Cause,
it.
yeah, so I didn't like ruin the mood of the evening because it was kind of nice. Um, and like didn't cause any ripples into the friendship, I suppose.
And so, are you still friends with those people today?
Yes.
Cuttle, are you worth standing up for?
Sometimes I feel like yes. I feel like a lot of the times it's no.
Why don't you feel like you're worth standing up for a lot of the time?
Cause I don't feel super special. I don't feel like I'm contributing much. So I have to take my lumps, I guess. Um,
So, in order for somebody to be considered and in order for somebody to like be worth standing up for, they need to they need to like how do I phrase this? They need to sort of like display outward value. Like they have to like contribute in order to be at all considered.
yeah, that's pretty much how it feels like in my house.
Well, that's how it feels like in your house, sure, but like what do you think?
Um, I think I probably have those same ideas because, it's been pushed onto me because it's a part of like the family dynamic.
What do you think about the idea that you have inherent value as a human being, regardless of what you contribute?
It kind of sounds like a little like foreign to me.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go a little hippy dippy. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Okay. What color is your hair right now?
Uh, Majority of it's blonde.
Okay. So if so when your hair was pink, were you still Cuttle?
Yes.
Okay. And before you took care of all of the pets, were you still Cuttle?
Yes.
And before you started working, were you still Cuttle?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems like it is not our accomplishments or what we do or what we contribute that defines who we are. Does that track? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So therefore, there must be some thing, some essence that is us that is completely bereft of label and achievement and failure and all that sort of thing. Like if I started calling you Sheila tomorrow, you would still ultimately be Cuttle. You know, like a rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right?
Hmm.
So that being said, I think that basing your value on what you contribute doesn't make sense because you are still always you regardless of what you contribute. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the sort of like core of this idea is that no matter what you do, you are still a person and you still deserve to be considered and deserve to experience life. How does that feel?
If it feels like you know, like common sense kind of thing.
So,
Like, yeah.
okay. How does it feel emotionally to you?
Um, Still like, yeah, it's common sense, but trying to bring it up with my family kind of feels like not possible because I feel like a lot of emphasis is put on what we do contribute.
Okay.
Because my sister, she was out of work for a few months because of illness,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember at one point she was super depressed and crying almost every day because she's like, "Oh, I'm not a contributing member to society." She's like, "Because I'm not at work." She's like, "I'm just sitting at home."
So that actually I feel sort of good about, and the only reason the only reason that I say that is because I feel like I I don't like painting people to be, like villains, because I think that, just like we were just talking about, like everyone has sort of inherent value. Um,
Mhm.
and that actually is the first sort of ray of, like, I don't know, like humanity that I've felt in your description of your family. That it sounds like your family is all also suffering from this same thing. That the reason that they push you so hard and, like, don't consider you to, and push you so hard to contribute to society, is because they feel like that is what is that they're suffering with the same thing. They feel like that's what's necessary in order to be like a good person.
Yeah,
Does that sound right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so what?
Because
Go ahead.
for like, I was unemployed for a while after
Mm-hmm.
high school. I tried to get like jobs, and like I did. It's not like I wasn't trying,
Mm-hmm.
but I just kind of felt like a burden,
Yeah.
and that's not great.
Yeah. Totally. Um. So I'm wondering if there might be room, if this were brought up outside of the context of you. And I know that that seems sort of counterintuitive given what we're talking about, like, you sort of like standing up for yourself and valuing yourself. But I wonder if it's not like a tricky way, if it's not a way to, like, trick your family into starting to consider you. In that, like, if you start talking to them about, like, hey, I've recently been learning about this idea of sort of like inherent self value, that, like, it really doesn't matter, like, our achievements or our accomplishments. Like, we are always us, and, like, we always, like, deserve compassion and love and, like, that sort of thing. um and I feel like it's something that we all sort of struggle with, and so I wanted to sort of share it with y'all and, like, see what y'all thought of it. How do you think that would go?
They'd probably listen. Um, I don't know how far the conversation would get, but
I mean, I think that listening is a great start, because that's the first time I've heard you say that your family would probably listen.
yeah, because I feel like that's like a major issue in my house is sometimes we don't listen, or
Yeah,
when we do, it's when somebody's at their worst.
right. And so it actually seems like right now you're in a decent place. Like, you got the normal the normal trauma stuff going on, the normal brain stuff going on. But
Yep.
but it seems like, like you're on vacation, like you're in a pretty good place, and like things seem to be pretty tranquil. And so it seems like it might be a good time to bring it up as just sort of like a general discussion, because I think that I've never sort of like noticed this before in us talking with each other about stuff that you're going through, but it does seem like your family is strangely going through the same thing that you are. And so the more healing I think that like we can do for like the whole household, the more you'll see returns in terms of like your family actually considering you. Like like if they feel like they can come out of their room crying and say like I don't want to go to work, and people are actually going to like show up for them and like be there for them and say like, "Oh, like I'm so sorry that you're having such a hard time right now," and like talk with them about it. I think that it'll be much more likely that they will do that for you.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's your responsibility to do that, but I think that broaching this conversation may sort of like bring, may sort of result in that. Hopefully. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe. And maybe not. Now, I mean, I don't, I thought about going down a potential path, but I think that this is actually a good start. I think that the idea of having a conversation with your family about just sort of inherent value might do something. And like I would love to check back in and see whether it's on another Tentacle Tantra or whether it's just like you write me on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
And just like let me know like how that talk goes and if you see any sort of like changes coming about because of it.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. How do you feel about that?
Scared, because usually when I'm around my family, I try to be kind of like positive. Your favorite word, I know. Um, and I kind of try to be, I guess, like the jester,
like the class
of sorts.
clown.
Yeah,
Okay.
I try to be funny and happy.
So I just want to point out a pattern that I'm noticing because I think it's important is that you're really afraid of like being the taker, like from what we've talked about. And yet everything that you've told me throughout this conversation illustrates that you're actually the giver in your family. And I think that that's actually really common because of course the takers in the family are going to make the giver feel like they're taking too much because the takers want to take everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so even if you're not able to actually change any sort of actions, I think that one thing that can be really helpful is just starting to notice this. So like when you are feeling depressed or anxious and you think about reaching out to someone and your brain gives you that thought of like, oh, but like if I reach out, I'll be a taker. If I reach out, like, I'll be that anxious, depressed person that is always complaining and always taking. And just notice that. Notice that thought and be like, but people that I'm assuming that you trust me. Forgive me for assuming, but people that I trust and like hold in some esteem have told me that I actually give an incredible amount. And like you don't have to change anything, you don't have to do anything differently, but just like start noticing that pattern if you can. And like that's another great way to reach out to me specifically. Like if you notice it, if you catch it, write me and be like, "Hey Tech, I just caught it." And I'll be like, "Yes!" And I'll give you a big high five. How's that sound?
So anytime I realize that um I'm being like a super giver
Yeah,
or
or not even any time that you that too. I think that that would be great, but not even that. You don't even have to do that. But anytime that you're feeling like depressed or anxious and you're isolating because you're afraid of reaching out because you feel like a taker when you reach out, notice that. Just that. Just notice like, hey, I am feeling like a taker right now. But I know cuz Tech told me so that I'm actually a pretty hefty giver. I give a lot. If you
yeah.
notice that thought, write me.
Okay.
Okay? How do you feel about where we are right now?
Uh,
Like in the conversation.
good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any like particular questions or like comments about things that you want to like talk more about?
Not that I can really think of.
Okay, because I'm feeling like this is a really good like first step and might be a good like concluding place if you feel okay with that.
That's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for doing this. I was actually shocked to see that you signed up for this because I was like, Cuttle hates doing public things. So thank you so much for doing this.
No problem.
Um, and like I said, please do like it. I'm probably if I haven't heard from you, I'll probably check back in with you just to see like if you do have this conversation, and if you do, like please do, check in with me and let me know how it goes.
Can do.
Okay. All right. Well, hearts.
Words.
All right.